Here are some massive tips for Throne and Liberty that are going to make you much better at the game and perceived as a much better player. We're going to talk about trading at the end, so make sure you stay tuned for that. Defensive abilities are super important. Make sure that you slot on a defensive skill for the correct weapon, or at least a weapon you have on. Parrying, dodging are massive parts of the game, and as you can see here, when I do things like parry, I may have a different instance of what happens after based on my defensive skill. For example, you can see here, when I have a perfect parry, I throw poison daggers, but when I have a perfect dodge, I go invisible. That raises the level of skill in this game insanely high. That stamina bar is super important. Things like attack speed also reduce the cast time of spells. I'm not quite sure what all the other interactions are. I've been trying to test to make sure that crits can't happen on healing or heavy attacks can't happen on healing. I've been getting mixed information about that, so if you want to put that in the comments, let me know. Your masteries are super important, so make sure you're doing them correctly. These are also easy to manipulate, as you can redo and take away the skill just for a little bit of gold. The main thing about masteries is the final node is always very strong. So make sure you're selecting the final node. In my personal opinion with daggers, I want to get to the bottom because it does increase my attack speed by 6.5%, which is going to be very good for my build. After that, I plan to get about halfway into the center, and for the staff in the middle row, I want to make sure I get to that cooldown reduction and then head down to the attribute tree. Let's touch on stat points. Stat points are going to be different in PvE and PvP. In PvE, I don't really struggle too much with getting hit because I always have a tank in front of me, so I don't need to worry too much about strength, which is going to increase things like my HP. Instead, I'm going to focus on dex, which is going to be my critical hit rate, and things like perception if I'm missing. If not, otherwise, I'm going towards wisdom, which is going to be cooldown reduction and things of that nature. In PvP, I may want to more focus on strength to make sure I'm a little more tanky, and perception to make sure I'm not missing on builds that are more magic evasion focused. When you get all these nodes to 30 and beyond, and every 10 points past 30, you will hit additional buffs every time you do. For example, here when I get perception to 30, my hit chance is increased by 100 points, and when I get dexterity to 30, my critical hit chance is increased by 100 points. That will increase as you develop and gain more stat points on that row. As you get points to 39 and above, they will start costing 2. So you really want to ensure your gear pieces are pushing you past that level, because you will find good stat points on specific gear, especially later in the game. Don't be afraid to reset these and move them around to make sure you're not struggling with anything. Before we get into that next video, do me a favor, like, follow, comment, all that stuff is super helpful to me. Let's get into it. Abyss Dungeons, which gives you some of the best loot in the game, is one of the most fun farming spots. Make sure you're farming allied resistance contracts. And buying this from the Sundries merchant, as it will give you 10 of each type. You can actually break them down and craft more, but I wouldn't suggest doing that, as it does give you roughly half of what you had before you broke them down. But it does allow you to craft specific ones if you really want to farm a specific dungeon, so there is a bit of a trade-off. Lastly, let's talk about trading, as trading can be very convoluted and confusing. Trading is going to really showcase if you understand this game. People are going to want to grab you for parties if your traits are proper, and if you could see that even on the blue, for example, they are almost, or if not fully maxing out the correct traits on their weapons. I would much rather have somebody fully traded out in a blue piece of gear than a brand new purple without the correct traits. Trading works like this, and I'm going to try to keep it as simple as possible. When you get a piece of gear, it'll have one trait on it, and it may not be favorable. If you want to upgrade that specific trait, this is how you do it. You just have to buy a same class of item. So I have to buy another weapon with the exact same trait. If the color matches on the item, it'll be an 100% chance for that trait to get upgraded. But you can buy much cheaper pieces of gear, like greens, for example, to upgrade this blue, but it'll have a much less chance success rate, about 10% instead of 100. That being said, whenever you fail, you will gain blessing. Blessing is a fancy term of saying the more blessing you get, the higher chances you have of increasing your success rate on your next go. So sometimes it's far more beneficial to buy a ton of greens and fail multiple times in order for you to stack up your blessing. So let's say I wanted to upgrade the heavy attack chance to the final node here for my blue weapon. I can then use these green extracts that I purchased on the shop with heavy attack chance for a chance at upgrading it. Since I have 40 blessing, I could choose to use that to increase my percentage of enchanting to 50%. But I don't want to do that just yet, as you typically want to make sure you get to 100. So I will roll this and enchant this. Notice I failed, I gained some blessing. Now I could use even more to 48%, so I'm roughly at 58%. Let's try it again. Every time I fail, my blessing will continuously go up, and as you can see, I'm still failing. Now I could use that blessing. Right now I'd be at 82%. I'm still going to do one more because I have 2 more left. See, now that I'm roughly at 100% when I use my blessing, Now's the time you want to use your blessing, because then you can guarantee the trait works. And as you can see, a green goes into this blue here when I enchant it. I do have a success, and now my heavy attack chance is now maxed. This also can be applied to purples, but when you use a green on a purple, it's only a 1% chance of enchantment. So what you typically want to do is use blues into your purples with failures until you get 100% blessing chance, and then use a green to guarantee that you do the trait transfer. That is usually the cheapest way to enhance your purple gear. If you like this kind of content, hit that follow button, come over to the stream and show some love, subscribing, following the channels, all that stuff means the world to me. I appreciate all you guys, and I'll see you on the next one.